Okay, and we are live! Good day, my dear fellow friends. My name is Thunburn, aka Raven Marine, but you can call me Thunburn for short. Today, we have a guest here who actually represents the Imperium of Man very well. A man who I actually knew that wasn't able to show his face much often due to, well, some of his gaming software couldn't handle Caldega's support. But now he has been active. Now he's able to show his glorious more than all honor in many inspections. I give you the man, the myth himself, Oliver. Do tell me, Oliver, how was your day?
My day has been wonderful. I started it with some very xenophobic commentary towards the Eldar as I punched them in the face with my power fist at Caldega.
Well, you know what they say. Mostly punching an Eldar in the face can solve its depression by every day.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you are here, Oliver, because now we can actually get a full perspective of the opinion of a man who actually leads, well, does mostly all the important stuff, and yes, lead the Imperium of Man of IOM. Plus, a real good one of the community. So, are you ready for the questions I'll be answered to you?
Absolutely. I am ready.
Alright. First question. How did you find IOM or the community?
Well, it's been a long time. As of this August, it will make my 5th year here in IOM, and it all started, as most things start around here in IOM, with a little bit of trolling. I had no idea about this group. I had no idea what a somnium was, but I seen Vitreous there, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna follow him, and I'm gonna troll him.
Hmm.
Then I realized that this is a Warhammer group. I thought, neat, and ended up joining the Harakani Warhawks, and here we are, many years later.
I see. Now, this knowledge of yours is sort of new to me. Was this basically the era when, well, Caldega was at, sorry, the IOM community was at its worst? Or at its
No,
best? On your, on,
I would not say it's best. Um, IOM, as of when I joined approximately 2 weeks after the Primarch rebellions.
oh,
I did not know any of them, which, according to John, for anyone unaware who John is, that is the anathema, our glorious leader. Uh, we had multiple Primarchs. They didn't like being told what to do and left the group. I got to avoid all that nonsense, which is just fine with me. I hate political infighting. However, their leaving did take a good chunk of the group's activity at the time. When I joined, we had the first iteration of Krieg. I don't mean as a regiment, I mean as the map.
hmm.
The activity of Krieg could very well said to be outside of official raids we had there, maybe 2 active people on the game patrolling. A lot of days of a much younger in IOM Oliver Viken with my Harakani Warhawk attire, talking with a Custodes Carapar Requiem in his Alatus Terminator plate, complaining about the inactivity of certain officers. Not much has changed there. We still do exactly that.
Hmm.
But I would not say it was the worst part of IOM's history. Things did get better. Activity got a lot better. The core, especially after at the time, Zachary, as most of you will know, is a developer now here in the group. He was formerly a Lord Commander in the Imperial Guard, along with other titles, which I'll get into as far as IOM's history. As to not rattle on too long about this, I would say, in my own opinion, that the worst period in IOM history came 5, 6 months after the Astartes reform. For anyone unaware, the Astartes, at one point, the activity had dwindled enough in IOM that we decided that something major needed to happen for an overhaul. So the Guard was disbanded, and the entire group became Astartes chapters. The two that were founded were the Ultramarines, led by, oh God, I've done forgotten his name. Sorry, kids, the bench is acting up again. But anyway, we had a Primarch Gilliman for them, and then Derek Lowe, which many of you might remember, led the Iron Hands. This lasted about a sum total of 2 weeks before they left, and I was dumped the Iron Hands in my lap, and Zachary was dumped the Ultramarines. Both of us decided to change the chapters to something more popular, I'd say. I led the Imperial Fist, Zach led the Blood Angels. He would continue to do so. I had issues later on during my time, and eventually stepped down as chapter master, and our chapter chose to disband, as we had intended to go to the Skitarii. Skitarii is a very strange history of almost coming to fruition and then not coming to fruition. Entirely different matter. But after that would occur, we had the Salamanders, the Blood Angels, and then seemingly every other week a third chapter would spawn up from either a friend group or just people uninterested in their chapters of birth. It was not a good time for IOM. The political infighting of people, it was very draining, and we lost a lot of people to it.
Michael, I do apologize, but I would, as a man who actually has heard rumors about the terrible times of the IOM culture, I've called on that day the Great Fall, when many Primarchs, many Space Marines, and many people who actually had good progress within the group had ended up losing everything in the world. Basically, the Great Downfall, I call it. And very surprising enough, you were able to be part of it, and you were able to suffer, well, all of that. Can you at least tell me, was it like downstruck sad that you lost everything that you were working on?
Absolutely. But at this point, it was something that we all saw was inevitable. Realistically, a lot of people were handed responsibilities that they necessarily shouldn't have had at the time. Really, any of us that were there at the time will agree with that assessment. Zach, especially, me and him. Let's put it this way: we've always been people who belonged in the Imperial Guard and not the Astartes. So as things kind of shifted to be more akin to not necessarily what we have for the Astartes now, but when it became a bit more exclusive, we kind of cycled out to it. I, of course, spent a few months waiting for the Imperial Guard to relaunch, and finally, the person that had been tasked, Quake Trooper, to rebuild the Imperial Guard had simply not done so in about 2.5 months of time that he was given. John, of course, decided that enough was enough on the waiting, so he hired me back, another former officer named Synthetic, and then gave us 2 of his custodies as interim officers to form an initial staff. And this is when the Guard was refounded. That was actually my first tenure as Colonel of the Cadian 8th. I was its original and now the first of the reborn Cadians.
Hmm, I see.
So things have come full circle as far as that. I do have to say, and I think I do speak for the increasingly dwindling amount of long term veterans in IOM. I do say that the situation we find ourselves in now in IOM is probably the single best time that this group has arguably ever had. Not just because there's Xenos, of course, the community itself has just become far more cooperative. It's become, just it's much more enlightening, happy, just people here enjoying what they're doing. I obviously cannot stress enough how much I prefer that to what it used to be at times.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was certainly IOM's had some rough patches. Then in the same breath, IOM has definitely had points where it's been very successful.
Hmm. A man such as yourself has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I would say that for almost every veteran that has been within your place. To know that you were once at the peak of your prime, to know that you once wielded the armor of the demigods themselves, being capable of at least tanking most hits and so on, and to basically lose that all in just a mere day. Or weeks, if you could say the Great Fall could be called that. In the mere end, a veteran such as yourself was able to stand firm and still move on, even as the past has simply came into the future has now came into fruition, and you're able to at least live on. Could you actually say that you enjoy where you are now?
I have always been a person who has thrived in the Imperial Guard more than anything. It's just a personal preference of mine, being with the bulk of the group's activity. I've always held a certain belief that if you have the capability to help people, you should put yourself in the situation where you can help the most at once. The Imperial Guard is that. It's always and always will be the primary source of activity for the group.
Very,
And
very
as
well
far
said.
as that's concerned, uh, obviously, we have gone from when Bob took over as Lord Commander Militant, they had lost the Tempest Scions. They had one regiment that was struggling to breathe. Several people had to be brought out of retirement or otherwise,
It would have just been a complete failure, my
yeah.
guess.
And yeah, now we have two regiments that exist, as well as a very successful Tempestus Scions, a commissariat which has garnered itself several new cadets, as well as elevated a couple of them to full commissar. EMT has two successful and very active units with the Grenadiers, the Castricans. Ogrins keeps getting kind of flogged by Dark Angels recruitment.
Yeah,
Seems like every time they recruit, the Ogrins get whacked around a little bit. We
yeah.
got one.
I simply, I, s- you know, when I was a full-on Ogre, I was a full-on representative of it. After a while, like my goal was to full-on become a Dark Angels, and not to say that I had no regrets, but there was only one regret that I only have over my mind, and that's just wishing that I could have bring up the numbers for Ogre before I left.
It is a. I can understand to a extent why people don't go Ogrins. It's a very niche role that you're filling versus Casterkins and Grenadiers, which shock troops can mean a whole lot. There's
True.
a lot of variety that that term could realistically take. With the Ogrins, though, it is very one dimensional. And while that initial interest is always there, it disappears very quickly.
Yep, it really, really does. But thank you for answering the first question at the very, very best of your capacity. We truly learned a lot by just one question. Who knows what other answers do you have for other questions of the five? All right. Next question. What was your journey like in IOM or the community in general?
It's been up and down. I've always enjoyed the group and the overall community. I do believe certain people have kind of tainted it at times. Uh, Primary examples that most people will at least have heard of would be Dace, Wolfram. These were just people who they resided solely for themselves. The group didn't matter. The people in the group especially didn't matter to people like this. They wanted what they were going to do, and that was about the full extent of what they wanted. Didn't matter what they broke. It didn't matter who they wronged in the process. It's not a way that anybody realistically should try to strive to be, because look what happens to them. Their names are almost entirely stricken, and what's ever said of them is purely negative, which they've warranted. But that's what that kind of behavior ends up causing.
Mm, I see.
But otherwise, this community has always had people that are very passionate about Warhammer, but not in a, you know, completely unhinged manner. People just come here to enjoy a Warhammer setting. Even people that don't know about Warhammer, which there are many of them that have joined this group. There are people in this group now who know virtually nothing about Warhammer. They just see a fun group with fun people and they join. And we welcome all comers here in IOM. And it's those people that have kept everyone going for as long as they have. If things had been left to people like Dace, Chosen Rubric, Wolfram, this group would most likely be dead. But assuming it wasn't, and they just grew with people that started to act like them, let that kind of culture fester, this would not be a group people would enjoy.
Hmm. It is only glad that we have been turning the turn this. Sorry, we have. Sorry, wait. It is only good that we were able to take the actions that were needed to be taken in order for us to reach where we were. John, I've heard a lot of rumors that he was not in his right mind during those times when, well, IOM was so. But I guess I would say that he has taken the right actions and needs to make the community and group better. But the question is, the question I have is kind of unknown, and I would want to prefer it to be answered or not be answered. It doesn't matter, but what made him honestly straighten up this act? However, enough about that. We'll be going for the third question. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna let you know now that these videos will not be edited in any sort of way. In order for us to get the learning experience of me and the dear fellow guests who are part of the podcast, it will be exponential that we would get every bit of information being funny, mistaken, or or sometimes just we end up making a boo boo in some situations. It would be only black glad that we document each and every bit of it with the 30 or 20 minutes that we have, maybe longer. Alright, let us continue with the third. Wait. Oh, yes, the fourth question. What are you going to do in the near future in IOM or the community?
As far as my plans are concerned, they obviously hinge around the Imperial Guard and, of course, the Cadians. As the senior officer within the Imperial Guard under Bophides, I do handle both regiments, but of course, Cadian 8th is directly under my command. It's my little baby project.
Ah,
To that end, our plans are, and the ones that I can formally say, of course, is
do take your time.
right.
Don't forget that we're not allowed to mostly talk about important information, just information that is mostly known to the people.
Oh
Oh,
yeah. Well, obviously, the Cadians have just opened up a reconnaissance unit, something that I've been talking with my second Dub and our other lieutenant, JT Port. We've discussed this for a while and finally have started to implement it. IOM has, for a time, it tried to be a clan. That obviously didn't really go well. But in the process of trying to get us away from that, we've kind of taken a backseat to just raiding in general. Outside of this Saturday events, most of the time, however, that ends up being an internal raid versus an external. What we're looking to do, both using this reconnaissance unit, our Kasserkins, and of course the actual regiment itself, is to branch out and allow us to make raiding a not a competitive event. And I cannot stress this enough. We're not doing this for competition. We're doing this for the enjoyment of going out and getting into a fight, which is something everybody here enjoys. It's certainly not something that's just rolled off the plate. But so with that, that's a immediate that we're looking to go for. Of course, both regiments are situated into platoon structures right now. On that note, both of them are teetering on the point of being able to open a second platoon, which really shows towards the activity and especially towards the amount of people we've actually been able to retain and elevate to NCOs. There was a problem for a long while keeping people as NCOs, more so keeping people interested in becoming an NCO. We don't really have that problem now. It's kind of bumpy at the moment, not in a bad way. It's just I feel like a lot of people have they doubt themselves on whether they could pull it off or not, which understandable. You don't want to mess it up, but none of us would judge a person for not being able to perform the task. But I am of the opinion that you should always give it a try, because the worst thing you could do is just find out you're not good at it. Nobody's going, nobody's going to look at you worse for not succeeding in one thing. Everybody's got their own little clique. They something that they're just good at. And it's part of our job, both the commissariat and the officer corps. It's part of our job to try and guide people to professions that would suit them, both as a person and in their skills. A big one that we'll be introducing soon into the Cadians, I'm uncertain Um, I'm uncertain if the core wants to introduce anything like it. I know they are going to be expanding the cult of sacrifice to give it a bit more of an intricate nature within the regiment itself. So we're looking forward to that. For the Cadians, however, we're going to be creating an honor roll for each squad and platoon. It'll be organized through Trello, and it'll be a history of the squad. Not every individual member, because potentially a squad could end up with hundreds of just regular guardsmen going through it, but the list of sergeants, notable raids that the squad partook in that they did exceptionally well, awards that were given out to the squad, which that goes hand in hand with the topic of what do we intend for the future. Well, given that the Corps and the Cadians are now with the squad system, we're going to be introducing new awards within the Guard that are specifically focused around squads, platoons, and on the regimental level. So when they perform well, they get a reward as a collective group rather than as an individual. It's things like that that the honor roll document. A nice little recorded history. So every person, even though it's not wide scale, like these people, most of them will probably not make a mark on the Imperial Guard that's long lasting, several years, on the large scale of the group, the changing of activity, determining that, or some big reform that really shapes the entire group. Most people are not going to be doing things like this. But they can look back at the honor roll and they can see their own little part in it. Or they can see the part of friends, what they've accomplished, and it actually be recognized. It's what we're aiming to do with it. Of course, the squads are also going to be able to choose their own name.
Oh, that's. Oh, wow. Okay, that's just gonna full on give a lot of ideas to some people. I can already see it right now. You can call one squad or just have the name the Suiciders. Okay, that might be going off of that, but
Now, of course, these names are going to be on the formal document, and we will put them in parentheses on the tags. I, however, am the only thing I'm going to do for restrictions for them is nothing excessively inappropriate. However, if somebody wants to do a semi-dumb name, well,
that will
they
cost
chose
me.
it.
Oh, oh, you're really going to allow it? Okay, okay.
As I said, there will be moderation to it, so it's not going like completely off the hinges. But as far as if they want to make a semi-stupid name that kind of situates themselves to a more meme-ish culture, they can certainly do that.
And I wouldn't
Eh,
have no other way with it. But with this information, this is truly fascinating. You really have thought about this on a really good perspective that can get the guard really motivated, happy to the point where they can actually call their own squad their very own name. Now that is something that is truly committed to the near future of IOM. And I'm not saying this because of many other people who didn't provide a good answer with this, but good man, this is just fascinating. I just hope that this isn't classified information that shouldn't even be said among the thuncast.
Nay, as far as most guard structural changes, a lot of them have been something that I've just devised. Boff typically leaves most of these things up to me. We discuss it between Clone, him, and myself. Uh, this particular one is one that I've been discussing for a while, but as things have developed a lot faster than I thought they would, it's been a bit. I wanted to do this a lot earlier than it's being done, but of course, there's a lot more things that were pressing concerns to get finished before I started on it. Uh, Another thing we are going to be reintroducing, not introducing, but rather reintroducing, is war games for the Imperial Guard. Competitive events, both on an individual and group level, between the regiments, between people. We'll have a wide list of events that span several days that people can participate in, and depending on the result, they can get various things. Exactly what that will entail, still to be determined, but for the overarching idea of it, it's there. Something for people to engage with.
If I may put a suggestion on that, the reward for the like these tournaments that you guys are going to do should be at least one weapon that you should add from 40k, but it has to be within the guard.
Potentially. It depends, of course,
If the
as we get
develop
into that.
if
Yeah,
the
as we get into that kind of discussion, that does come down to what will the developers allow us to do?
mm, yep, the main question is what will the possibilities be depending on the people's minds. However, very, very well said. For the fourth question of all, you really truly answered it very well. Alright, let us go for the fifth question. What do you think of the community or IOM? Or all communities in general? You know what? I should just start off with the community in general because that just represents all in one.
As far as the Warhammer community is concerned on Roblox, not specifically ours, it's very strange. I hesitate to say that the others beyond us are anything akin to, well, civilized. The reason I say this, of course, is many people, especially when they've engaged with the wider community or any veterans of IOM specifically, they'll know what I'm talking about. The other Imperiums out there, they're a lot of them are mired in very strange ways. Vitreous, for instance. I don't necessarily think he's a bad guy, but the people that he surrounds himself with are absolutely bad people. And that ultimately becomes the image caused by it. Revan is the same way. I don't think Revan is necessarily a bad guy either, but there's a lot of people that he enlists that are not good people. And when they end up becoming the public face of your group, well, that's what people will know you as. It's unfortunate, absolutely, but in that capacity, well, you asked for it. Our group here is realistically the only one that I would say is unified. Of course, people will scuffle here. They always do, but that's to be expected.
Mm.
And with that, other than that, though, our community here has it's very productive. People are here because they want to be here. People are here because they enjoy what they're doing here in IOM, and that's good. That it's something that really any community should aspire for.
Mm. I will have to say this, and I mean this by a long shot. Beyond many other people's opinions about Warhammer 40k, they mostly tread far and wide, trying to find I'm calling Warhammer 40k Sanctuary here. And beyond this wild time of searching, there was nothing to be found. You got places like Revens, but that, for what I've heard, is a complete downfall of something that should be happening very soon. And then you got other Warhammer 40k groups that didn't have the artist potential to make it as so. At this point, as, well, for Warhammer 40k fans, often we don't even have the chance to merely afford but games that can actually support 40k. Instead, we have the full-on strive to Roblox to try to find that sanctuary. Minecraft, if anyone has. And then, once you gaze upon the IOM community itself, you have finally found that sanctuary that you've been waiting for so long. And this journey had simply represented, well, me and many other people. I was part of an old Warhammer 40k group, once a Space Marine also, Templar. After the retirement of the group itself, I was able to only say goodbye to my mere battle brothers. I traveled and I traveled trying to find places that I could enjoy, but none of them didn't give the spark of the Warhammer 40k experience that I adore. And then one day, from when my dear friend of mine, Matt, he was able to show me a group that was actually truly fascinating. So with me pressing on that play button for the game, I was immediately just full on struck with the experience of being part of the community. Enduring the battles, enduring the wars, enduring the mere fascination of the group itself. The main point I'm trying to get here is that we want to find a sanctuary. And therefore, Oliver, the developers, you guys are basically the main people that's keeping this place alive. And that's just coming from me. If there's any other people who are truly making this group truly alive, then you guys can let me know. The viewers. Truly, Oliver, you made everything possible. And I just didn't even know you for a while. Oliver?
Hello. I'm still here. I sorry. I was I
You
while we're
kinda.
doing this, I'm kind of playing Age of Wonders 4 while we're doing this, and I was trying to design a lich that looks like Morbius, and yeah, my brain just decided to shut everything else out
Oh,
for a
God.
second.
Oh,
It's
oh,
Morbin time.
oh, God. Why has movie culture strived so far? That is a question. But, wow. You know, we are almost finished with this thuncast. There's actually one more question. But still, though, wonderful thing to answer well, yes, for the fifth question here. Alright. Sixth and final question. What is the one thing that you would want in the game of IOM?
This is a good one. Uh, mm,
But however, it only has to be one thing. That doesn't include all one deal for morphs and weapons. There has to only be one.
yes. Well, see, it's something that we've already had, but it's been lost to us. You see, one time during a rather brilliant creative inspiration in his brain, Beholder decided what would happen if I took Omnissiah's Will's Titan model and added a humanoid to it. But more so, he decided to do a hyperdance emote with it And for the brief 3 seconds before this giant titan doing a hyper dance crashed his studio, it was probably the most glorious thing I've ever seen. So, Beholder, if you're listening, go do that again. That was funny to me.
Oh, okay. Oh, that happened. I I actually want to see a full-on video, but I don't even allow videos on the thuncast yet. You know what? A glorious humiliation, all to both of these. Wait, yeah, both of these. I actually would want to see that suggestion myself, if there's any developers who are actually listening. However, that is all the questions though you have answered greatly successfully. And you know something, Oliver? You got me so excited when I put your name within the shuffle list, and somehow I just wanted you to be that next guest. So when I bid the roll, you actually got selected the first try, and that's just full on the sign from the Emperor himself for me to interview you. The point where I was actually so excited that I forgot to state the podcast name, being Thuncast, and the episode for the Thuncast, which was episode 5. That is how excited I am to merely have you within the Thuncast. But however,
I'm
the oh,
very honored by it.
thank you for have taken the time and the patience to share your opinion on the Caldega community itself. You truly done an honorable thing today. Tell me, do you have any last words to say to the mere viewers here today?
Absolutely. There was one shout out that I was requested to do, and I am absolutely going to do it. To all my Cadians out there, and of course to the core, just remember, children, Xenos aren't people, so those war crimes don't count.
Very, very well said, my dear friend. My dear fellow friends, this podcast has come to a close. You'll have a wonderful day and enjoy yourself. And if you want to be part of the next Thuncast, do reply to the message that'll be posted with the log that I'll be doing for it. And and do not forget, it is patience that you have to go through when you're going to be part of the Thuncast. It is not straight up DMing away. I have to put you guys through a shuffle list, so if your name gets selected, you'll be part of the Thuncast. So you'll not be selected by people who is great. This encounter between Oliver and me was actually by luck chance. It's not like I wanted it to happen, but I kind of wanted it to happen because of the amazing questions and the information that he had provided us here today. However, be part of the next podcast to whoever guessed. You all have a wonderful day, dear friends, and have a great time fighting in Caldega. Log end.